Her path to success and well-being followed a conventionally prescribed blueprint, yet it was anything but conventional. She did what she was led to believe was right until she recognized that she had to revisit her actual belief system. Facing certain burnout, she made a conscious decision to master her mindset and master her skill set in order to attain true well-being. My guest on Thinc Underground is Master of Business Administration, Certified Financial Planner, Certified Integrative and Leadership Coach, Ghinwa Merei, founder of Envisionary Innovative Consulting. Ghinwa, welcome Underground.
Thanks, Ira, for the great intro and for pronouncing my name properly. That was great. Thank you.
This is Thinc Underground. Insightful and intelligent conversation with entrepreneurial giants, impact leaders, and titans. Coming up next on Thinc Underground.
I will tell you, in case you weren't listening in on the whole thing, that took some practice, but I think I got it quite close, and we'll figure that out by the end of this podcast for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to speak with you. I've been doing a little bit of reading on you, a little bit of background study on you. I love your story, and it really is anything but a conventional story. But what I really enjoyed most about reading about you was your approach to self-awareness, to commitment to self-awareness, to just not accept life as it was handed, not accept life as we see in the status quo, but to actually challenge it for yourself, starting with the self-awareness. And it's a phenomenal journey. So let's get right into it. If I might as well, put a little bit of substance and back up what we talked about during the introduction, which really is, you started your journey in a very different world.
Yes, indeed.
So you were born in Syria, and tell me about your journey from Syria to Canada into adulthood, and how the different worlds became a very real conversation for you to have with yourself.
Yeah, thank you. So I as you could see from my bio, I was born and raised in Syria, and we immigrated to Canada over 20 years ago. We did it in the middle of winter, which I think by now that was not a good decision, I guess. So like any new immigrant story, I mean, we had to start all over again from the scratch. We didn't have any family or friends here. It was just me and my husband who we came. And we had to build everything again. So we got an opportunity to start all over. And I became an expert in reset, go, and start. And from there, I've started like doing survival type of job, like any new immigrant would tell you, to just get into the Canadian market. And then after that, I thought, you know what, if I want to start all over again, might as well pick something that I've always wanted to do, which was banking. So this is kind of what got me thinking, what do I need to do to get my banking accreditation, to get started and kickstart my career into banking? And that led me to the world of banking. And from there, I stayed over a decade and then decided to start my own business almost 5 years ago.
Now, I want to have a conversation, if you will, just picking up on some of what you've just shared with us. And I think that this is an important part of the journey. Really, there are very few people living in this country who can say that they're from here, right? So somewhere along the line, we have lineage that typically is from elsewhere. I myself, I am born of immigrant parents. Both of my parents might have had a similar journey to yours, maybe not the same, but certainly similar. But I didn't have that journey that you certainly both participated and partook, but also endured and endured everything. Even once you arrived here, you weren't here. There was that whole, as you call, acclimatizing and finding your way in an entirely new world. What I wanted to touch on just for a moment, though, is that when we look at who's making up participants in our economy, in growth and in business in Canada. Let's even refer to it as North America. Many of our leaders in business and in small business do come from abroad. Many have an immigrant story. And I think that that's fascinating. And I think it doesn't necessarily get enough airtime to discuss it. So my question really that came to mind as you were sharing, and as also I was reading about you from before, is you moved to Canada with your husband, but I'm curious of what your belief of the opportunity of Canada was versus what you experienced when you arrived, because that's part of your journey to shaping who you eventually became. Maybe you can share with me some of that sort of journey that you had, maybe not just the physical journey, but maybe the mental and emotional journey.
Yeah, I mean, what I thought of the whole experience was a little bit different than the reality, right? I think first part is because we immigrated here, and my understanding there was a need for new immigrants. My husband is an engineer, and he had to go through the process of getting his engineering degree accredited. So I thought it's going to be, since there's a big need for engineers at that time, and there's a need for immigrants, I thought the whole integration would be way smoother and easier than what ended up happening. So the sad reality is what happened is we immigrated to Canada, and then, I mean, they did a good job before, kind of really giving us a little bit of heads up, but we were kind of on our own when we first came in. I mean, we didn't know anyone at that time. There was very few Syrian community here. We didn't know any friends, any family, nothing. And we had to struggle with the fact that first, I mean, I was a marketing manager. My husband was a general manager. We had a well-established career back home. So we thought we could get into the same type of career, which was farther from the truth. Is the thing that we were faced with is you don't have Canadian experience. And then, the other thing is we, after, maybe a couple of tries into getting into our own career, we thought, we need a job. Like we start kind of using all our savings towards buying the furniture and a car and all of these things. So we wanted a job. And then at that time we thought, let's kind of go with any job. And then when you apply for a lesser type of job, then they would tell you, oh, you're overly qualified for this job. Like, how would I know that you're going to stay here? And then I was like, again, it become more like the chicken or the egg. Okay, so I don't have Canadian experience, but then when I'm applying for any type of job, I'm overqualified. What do I do here? And during that time, the support that we got is like workshop on how to apply for a job, how to write your resume, which, don't get me wrong, is very helpful, for any new immigrants. But at the time that we came, there was not as many type of programs for to help integrate the new immigrants into the Canadian society. So we had, both me and my husband, we had to get a job. And then I started working at retail at that time. And I remember, it was quite the journey. But I mean, I think we were, in a way, so determined to get into the job market really quick. So within a month, both me and my husband were actually working, but we were working in retail. I was working straight commission, and I didn't even know what straight commission before I actually started working. But, I wanted a job. I'd rather start working and then work my way up than keep waiting for that perfect job opportunity.
It's a fascinating story, and listening to you, I can picture my father going through definitely not the same, but a similar consequence or a similar journey. And I'm also thinking about, I think it's important to bring attention to the fact that in recent years, Canada and many other parts of the world have seen immigration from Syria on a substantial scale. And I'm wondering today if the experience for these immigrants who have come to Canada recently is any better or any improved in comparison to what you experienced over 20 years ago. And my gut instinct, from what I've heard, from what I've read, from the interactions that I've had with different social service providers in the various communities, is that I don't know that it's that much better than what you went through. For one, because they've come in mass and in a greater mass out of necessity, but I still have this feeling that they were met with fairly generic, templated reception, as opposed to a truly thoughtful, well thought out plan on how to help assist and integrate and, bring these families or these individuals into Canada and to be healthy and their well-being and productive in society.
Yeah, I mean, it is way better than when we first came, I'll have to admit. But is it where it should be? No, not yet. But I'll have to acknowledge all the progress that has been done. Like, for example, one of the things that wasn't at the time we started is there is some bridging programs for new immigrants, like for engineers or for any medical trained professionals. That wasn't when we first came. When we first came, my husband was told, don't even dream of working as an engineer here. I mean, thank goodness he didn't listen to them, and he's a professional engineer now. But that's the problem. You see all of these engineers and doctors who are foreign trained, but then they're working in retail or taxi driver or in a gas station. So that was the sad reality when we first came. It's not, there is some progress, but is it where it should be? I don't think so, because the first year is so critical for any new immigrants. And this is where there is more support needed. And the support mainly needed into how would you integrate these new professionals into the Canadian workplace. That's the part that I feel is still missing. There is some training done. There is some support in how do you get a job, but there is no support into integrating these new immigrants into the workplace.
Well, I will tell you that I look forward to seeing action applied to words as we pay attention to political debate that's happening now, as we are flirting with election time in the not too distant future, certainly at a national level. This is a conversation that has been brought forward more than once in debate, and I'll be interested to at least be paying attention, and I'll certainly look forward to speaking with you maybe around that time to see if we've continued to move in the right direction. But let's move on from that just a little bit. I thought it was important to at least have the conversation because, especially as it applies to your area of expertise, it's actually quite an interesting trajectory and progression that you've made as your very first experience coming into this country forced you, if you will, I'm putting those words in your mouth maybe, to have to take this in mind, to have to take this into consideration, how to prepare yourself and how to grow and evolve when on the very first minute you automatically started, I'm going to put it as a disadvantage, where you weren't accepted on par with your credentials and you've had to find your place. Let's fast forward a little bit. You took it upon yourself to be proactive and to find your place and to learn some new skill sets and new talents. And I believe the story goes that you found yourself working in the financial services sector and you worked your way through financial services at a more personal level and then eventually into administration and management. How did that journey and why did you choose to pursue that journey?
I mean, I've always been fascinated about the whole financial services, but unfortunately at the time that I was still living in Syria, we didn't have as many opportunities to work in. There was no private banking at that time. So it was at the back burner, but there was no opportunity presented itself at that time. So I felt if I have the choice, then why not? And it was, at the beginning, it was really difficult because, again, here I am, I have some Canadian experience, but then you're familiar with the financial service yourself. It's just the message I kept getting is you have to start all over again. In financial services. So basically they're telling me I have to start as a teller. So they didn't recognize my customer service experience, my other sales experience. And I, at that time, because I really, this is part of any immigrant journey, is you have some catching up to do because, I had to start all over again. So I needed to bridge some gaps, and I didn't have the luxury of taking my time into my progression. So what I ended up doing, I did my accreditation to become a financial advisor. So I thought maybe that would give me better chances. And I insisted that I could right away start in financial services. And my persistence really paid off. So I think the fact that I did my CSC, which is my accreditation to be licensed as a financial service rep or financial advisor, plus my persistence into applying for a financial advisor type of role finally paid off. And from there, then I kind of felt I need to prove myself. So I had to really work on both ends. I'm working on my accreditation, and at the same time, I'm working on really showing the value that I'm able to provide. And that, yes, I don't have as much banking experience, but I'm eager to learn, and I'm eager to actually show the value that I'm adding to my clients, which kind of really led me to move up really quickly in my career at the bank at that time.
Now it's interesting because again, I'm hearing you and I'm picking up a bit of a tone in a sense. And what I'm hearing is that you couldn't rely on natural progression to figure itself out for your journey, for your escalation in your journey. Yeah. You used the word more than once. Certainly, the persistence is what paid off. Yeah. And I presume you came you didn't have family, you didn't have anybody rooting for you in your corner. Obviously, you do have your husband that was with you, but really, it was a level of determination that you had to outperform. Maybe your peers, but you certainly had to outperform the expectation that society had on you in order to excel. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that because I did read your story, and obviously, fast forward and maybe a bit of a spoiler alert, but you got yourself to a point where you realized you'd had really exhausted your fuel. You'd really exhausted your energy, and this growth trajectory and this pressure that you'd put on yourself to perform began to catch up on you.
Yeah, I mean, I at that time, what I thought is I had no choice. I really need to bridge that gap sooner because of the fact that I had to start all over again almost twice after I came to Canada. So I needed to prove myself in such a short time. And to me, proving myself was a combination of learning, educating, and getting my accreditation, because I'm a big believer in learning. And the other part is, from a performance point of view, is being that top quartile performer. And showing the value and being great with clients. So to me, at that time, I just thought that I was invincible. I just thought that I have all what it takes. I'm so determined. I want to be successful. I want to move up the corporate ladder. That's how I defined success at that time. So I really didn't care that much for my well-being. I just thought that my energy is never ending. I have all what it takes to be successful. I was so ambitious and driven. And many years later, I just had the reality check that, hey, there is a limit there to how much we abuse ourselves into thinking that, we could keep working so hectically and keep putting so many hours and really not paying attention to our well-being. So this is what burnout happened and taught me the biggest lesson in my life.
So, I want to talk about that biggest lesson in your life a little bit, but give me an idea at this point in your journey. How long have you been in Canada at this point in the story?
So keep in mind, though, I had to balance between I'm building my career and I want to start my family. So what happened is right after I got a full-time job and we bought our house within 1 year from our being in Canada, and that was from our earnings. So it wasn't from savings. So at that time, when I felt, okay, you know what, I have a stable, I'm working as a manager in the retail side of things. I have a house, I have a full-time job. Now I could pay attention to having family. So I had to technically take a break to start my family and have 2 kids. But then during that time, I was actually back to university and doing my management diploma and doing my banking accreditation. I was doing it as I was pregnant on maternity leave Actually, the last exam I wrote in my management diploma, I was like 2 days before my due date with my son. So I didn't really have chance to rest. I was even on mom duty and then learning and then doing a full-time job at the same time. So, it was crazy. So to answer your question, I think it was 6 years in, but then during that 6 years, there was 2 maternity leaves, going back to school, and then kind of getting my my Canadian security accreditation to be a financial advisor.
So for anybody who's watching this, you might be seeing my facial expression. For anybody who's listening to this, I'm going to say, imagine my facial expression, because this is really a story to me, and I'm going to have a little bit of fun with it. But for anybody who says you think you've got it tough, hold my beer. This is one of those stories I'll show you. I mean, okay, so not, and I don't want this story that we're going to share today, and I don't believe the story is all about your journey as an immigrant in Canada. I believe it's important to set some of the foundation to understand where you came from, how you arrived here, etc. But you're a new Canadian. We would have referred to it as an immigrant back then, probably now more a new Canadian. I don't know if you had your citizenship yet at this point at 6 years in, but you're a new Canadian. You've navigated a professional course. You're now on maternity leave twice, so you're a woman in Canada as an immigrant in a professional setting as well, a mother. More typically, you're dealing with the obviously a maternity leave and initial child rearing, and then having to find who's going to look after the children while you go back into your professional journey as well. And then you decide to, because that wasn't enough, to go back to university and gain some additional accreditation. I'm just really just adding the layers on here, and the layers are pretty phenomenal. I'm enjoying the story, but at this point now, you started your family. You, in 1 year, put together savings to buy, not savings, earnings to afford to buy a house. Phenomenal right there. 20 years later, obviously it is very difficult to buy a home today. But even then, no small feat, I'm sure. You've added your accreditation. You've decided, though, that it's starting to catch up with you. And now is really the story that I think other people can sort of enter into this picture and join you in the journey, where they've been building and pursuing their professional venture, maybe in some form of employment, and they've decided that they're lacking that level of inspiration to continue in an employment role, and they're looking to go out on their own and start a business. And really, this is where I'm hearing you're at this point. So you've decided now to leave the world of corporate banking as we may know it and go out on your own. Why? You talked about the burnout, but who in their right mind thinks, I'm burned out in my job, so I'm going to go start a business?
Yeah. So the burnout gave me the courage, but it wasn't the reason. So, I mean, as I mentioned, I went into the banking industry, and I stayed there for a decade, and I moved up the corporate ladder really quick, whether being a general manager, bank manager, and then moving to head office and starting my own business. So everything on my bucket list in terms of corporate jobs, I've actually was lucky enough and determined enough to check that box. And then what happened is 10 years into banking, and not just only banking, everything that I've done in my career, which basically was 20 years into corporate, with everything that I've achieved that I wanted to achieve. And at the same time in head office, I got a chance to start my own business, my own team. So I was like an entrepreneur. So I started a brand new national team. It was a new idea to the whole bank. It was something that was very creative, very fun. It was a dream job, and I really loved every aspect of it. And I used to use different skill sets that I've never at the retail side of banking used to use. At the retail side, you just basically implement strategy. But for me to be in a creative mode, I'm creating process, procedures, I'm hiring, I'm training, I'm pivoting on the spot. It was a lot of joy. I was able to create a team culture the way I wanted. So I really enjoyed that part of it a lot. the other part that I felt I didn't enjoy as much is the life of an executive, the life of, because I've never really thought of having my own business. I've always wanted to be an executive, a CEO of a big company. So I never ever thought of starting my business. But I think what triggered this to start is the joy that I have creating my own team and growing that team and getting a sense of how this is fun. And the other part is me working so many hours because it was brand new team. I was working 24/7. And so it was like 2 years of working so hard. And I felt all of a sudden the life of the executive is not as appealing as I thought it's going to be. So here I am. I worked so hard in my life to be where I am, but now I don't see a future for me there anymore because yes, I don't mind working hard temporarily to create something, but that's not the lifestyle that I aspire to have forever. There's more to me that I wanted to do. And my burnout, I think what happened with burnout is gave me the courage because it's not easy to leave a successful six-figure, corporate job, and you're getting all of, the title, the status, and the money and everything that comes with it, and start all over again. So the burnout made it easier decision for me because I felt, for the first time, I felt it's almost my body is abandoning me. And if I don't jump off right now to save the rest of me, then I don't know how far I could actually push myself to work that many hours.
So that really sort of begs the next question. When was it that you realized that the pursuit of financial well-being was not necessarily the pinnacle of well-being itself?
It came out of my own personal journey and the story that I keep hearing from my clients over and over again. So what happened is I've always been financially well in a way. Like I've never worried about money growing up. I've never worried about money. I've always had, I would say, more of a neutral feeling. It wasn't something negative. It wasn't something that I kind of was, I was driven by success more than money. So to me, when I left my job and all of a sudden I had no earnings for the first time in my life, actually it took a toll on me. I didn't realize how much my identity was attached to my title, my status, my income, until I become income free. Technically, I had no income. So this is when I start feeling, there was some money worry start creeping in, and I'm thinking, who am I without all of this, right? So it gets me to start on my self-discovery journey and really trying to figure out who am I behind all of this and connect with who I am. And going through that journey, because I get to see both ends of financial wellness, when you're financially well and when you're not that well. And then even with my clients, when I'm working with clients, and especially after the pandemic and now inflation, money worry is like number one on everyone's mind. Even when I used to work as a financial advisor back in the day, money worries was the cause of a lot of stress, a lot of even divorces, a lot of relationship issues. A lot of people are stuck in their career because they think that I wouldn't survive with my earnings. So my own journey and what I've seen kept repeating with my clients get me to think, there is more to money than just kind of your earning and your net worth. There is the wellness piece to it. There is the money mindset. There is our relationship with money is actually dictating how much money that we have, and not just only money. There is how well you're feeling. So to me, when I started talking about financial wellness, is going a little bit more to the bigger picture. Yes, money is important. Money may not bring you happiness, but the lack of money brings you a lot of stress. So, and it's a basic necessity. So you can't really think about your career or building a business unless you fix your relationship with money and understand that there is more to money than just your earnings and your net worth.
So I'm listening to, again, I'm hanging on your every word here, and I can tell you I've never heard anybody refer to being money free as not having any. That's an interesting take on it for sure. But you're absolutely right when people say, money isn't everything, but there are enough of us who have tried life without it and realize that we choose not to have that either. But interesting that you talk about the relationship with money. Financial well-being is more than just how much money you have, but what your understanding and your relationship with it is. And if I read correctly when I was, looking you up, so to speak, is you talk about the different levels of consciousness. You talk about sort of your conscious competence around finance and money. Help me out with that a little bit. I'm interested in learning more.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I felt there's more to money as well, if I want to back a little bit, is when I left my corporate job, I was financially well. So I built a really good net worth. I could basically retire. So it wasn't that I needed the money to pay my bills. But my husband is working full-time job and we're financially in a good shape. I tried to entertain the idea that I'm retired right now, but it didn't sit with me. So to me, that's what got me thinking. So it's not really the money because I have the money. It's just that I don't feel well now around the money. So that's kind of even another reason why it gets me thinking about it. But the reason why I'm saying consciousness about money is if you ask anyone, let's say, a lot of people want to start their business and then you ask them, so why don't you do it? They say, oh, I don't have the money. Or some people are hating their job. Why don't you switch? Oh, I'm worried about money. The reality is it's not the money. It's other things behind the money. It's just money. It's the easy excuse that we use. So going through that journey and being conscious about and being honest with yourself, what exactly about the money piece is carrying you, if we're going to talk about the money. But the money thing is more a symbol to me. That's how I see it, because it's connected to a lot of other things that maybe a lot of people not aware of it, is like their limiting beliefs, about money or about themselves, that is holding them back and getting them to feel stuck. So, unless you're willing to go and be conscious enough to really figure out who you are and what's holding you back and what is the story that you've been telling yourself about money. And if I want to change it, not just the story that you've been telling yourself, the story you've been told about money growing up, because that's a big factor, is how we grew up hearing about money and treating money is actually embodied in our head and then conditioned the way we treat money or think about money and the decisions that we take and the behavior that we take around money. So it all starts with the consciousness and the self-awareness of what exactly is around money, like what is my relationship with money that is triggering my behavior and the decisions that I'm taking towards my career, my relationship with every other aspect of my life. So it becomes very foundational and it's like a first step before you even think about what's next for you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a fascinating journey when you think about it. If you look back at the last 3.5, 4 years, I don't know of too many people whose lives were not impacted financially and otherwise as it relates to the pandemic and the restrictions that were imposed upon many industry sectors, many people. When you look at 90 some odd % of the gross domestic product of this country is generated through small business, and not through large corporations, but through small and medium-sized business. And when you look at the restrictions that were, I'm going to say it, forced upon people, that many found themselves unable to operate their business today the way they did yesterday. From one day to the next, things were shut down. So the segments changed, the restrictions changed. It was not business as usual. And people were forced to really consider one of just a couple of options, including shut down. We're out of business. Not through any fault, if you will, of the proprietor, but literally they were put out of business because of the environment or the situation itself. And others found themselves forced to pivot and adjust their model, and others sought opportunity that the new situation presented. But there's really, I think it's fair to say somewhere in there, many people found themselves. And when you talk about that shift around the relationship with money and I don't have the money to start a new business, or I don't have money to change my business, when the situation comes together in the perfect storm, many people were tested, and many people, I think, found out that they had more resilience than they gave themselves credit for until that moment.
Absolutely. And you know what, as terrible and unfortunate the whole pandemic, and I know it's sad, so many people lost their lives and get impacted negatively, there was something good that came out of it, though. The good thing that came out of it first is the big focus on well-being. I think for the first time ever, it was a universal feeling. We were all connected with each other on humanity level. And we realized life is too short. There is more to life than just work. And then not only on the personal level, there was a shift happening, that people realizing the importance of well-being, the importance of family, the importance of connection. The other shift that really happened is from a workplace point of view. The companies realized there is more work needs to be done. The high level of burnout really, in every sector, but mainly even in health sector, it was really so big. So there was more demand to really prioritize well-being and try to figure out to include like some well-being programs into workplace. The other good shift that happened as well is the definition of leadership. Before the pandemic, and I think it was starting to shift a little bit, but the pandemic really made a big need for a change of leadership model. It used to be a good leader, you need to be like a superhero type of leader. You need to know it all. You need to be tough. You need to be very assertive. But then the shift really made it into like conscious type of leadership is no, you need to be more connected with your team. I mean, first you need to prioritize yourself. You need to remember you're a human being first before you're a leader, because I've been a leader for many years, for over 2 decades. There's a lot of pressure on leaders of today to really be perfect. There is a lot of pressure to kind of do it all. So, I think what happened with the pandemic, things start shifting to remind us all that we're human beings, we're not machines. The hustle culture started to kind of really phase off. And then instead, there is more need to incorporate well-being into the workplace and prioritize ourselves. And then redefine what success and what leadership is, and be more allow more of inclusive workplace, allow more of a psychological safe place for people to feel safe to be themselves and be authentically themselves. So there was some good things that shifted in a positive way out of the pandemic. And to be honest, it was about time, because I think for so long we all knew the system was broken. But I think it needed a pandemic for things to shift quickly into a new direction that is well needed on every level.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think if you look at legacy belief systems inside so many industries and sectors, whether it's banking, probably one of the biggest, I'm going to go with the word culprit, not in negative sense, but culprit, banking, insurance, government institutions. This is the way we've always done it, was a formula. And the banking sector, for example, refused on whole to embrace the idea of a digital signature or e-signature for transactions. All they had to do was be out of business for 15 minutes when they realized suddenly they would be okay to accept a digital signature. So that's a shift in culture of belief. But as you talk about, I think quite rightly, certainly there is no understating the impact, the significant impact that many families, countless families, I think there isn't anybody who didn't know somebody who had really a very heartfelt, tragic story as a result of the pandemic. And yet we continue, and yet we persist, as you used the word earlier. We persist, we adapt, we pivot, we grow, and certainly some opportunities came out of it, most definitely in tech. But one of the things you started to talk on was really an awareness around, what's worth it and what's no longer worth it. And that was really, and time will tell. I think we're still a little too young in this journey to figure out how much of this shift is going to stay versus how much might creep back. I don't think we'll ever go back to the way things were, so to speak.
I agree.
But we saw a few behavioral changes in industry and in consumer behavior or in general. One was a huge embracing and shift towards the e-commerce evolution. But since the restrictions have subsided, we've seen a similarly inverse trajectory away from e-commerce participation, and so many sectors within e-commerce or e-commerce related have seen a downturn, and therefore the layoffs and the tech layoffs and things along those lines. But the other thing that we saw was a massive shift away from, I'm no longer going to commute. You're not going to get me back into the office. I don't want to be an employee anymore. I can do this. I'm going to turn my side hustle into my business. And so the shift and the trend towards self-employment really skyrocketed and surged during the pandemic. I think many would argue partially out of survival and necessity, and partially out of recognizing and embracing opportunity. Income, you, with your business, your coaching, your leadership training, your monetary savvy, your financial acumen, and the ability to guide business owners, whether they're brand new to business itself, or maybe they were incredible technicians but need some guidance and some help on how to grow. Tell me about the journey on how you're serving the business community right now, because most of us, I would argue, didn't graduate with an MBA or a CFP or one of those designations around money, financial literacy, and business acumen.
Yeah. You know what? Even with all this accreditation that I have to say, it was hard for me even when I first started my own business. It's the mindset that served me really well in my corporate didn't serve me as well as an entrepreneur. So I had to kind of really do trial and error and kind of dabble with a couple of things. Let's add to it a pandemic to realize that it's almost I needed to reinvent myself to be able to be a successful entrepreneur. And that's what I try as well to help my clients, because I find being an entrepreneur, there's an extra layer of complex, actually multiple layers of complexity, and comparing to having a regular full-time job, there is the level of uncertainty is so high. There is you're actually switching and wearing so many different hats, and the other part too, because you're basically there is the good thing that you're deciding, on the income that you can get, the lifestyle you want. So there is this fun part and creative part, but that comes with a higher level of anxiety and uncertainty. So for anyone to find the balance between, I want to be creative, I have this technically kind of more like a magic wand in my hand that I could create the lifestyle, the business that I want, I could work with the clients that I want, balance it out with the level of anxiety and kind of really taking care of yourself and being self-compassionate, because I'm a high achiever and ex-perfectionist. So that was hard for me to learn to really show some love and slow down whenever there is a need to slow down rather than feel like the urge to really go quick. So to me, having enough support around you when you start your business, I learned it the hardest way, really. I thought that with all the knowledge that I have and all the experience, I could do it all on my own. And I was wrong, because you need support, whether it's a coach, a mentor, an advisor, a consultant, a family member, whatever support that you can get, a community of people who champion you and then really get you to remember who you are and own your bio and keep going. That support is more needed as an entrepreneur compared to any other job that you do, because you're facing so many different levels of difficulty and a higher level of anxiety and uncertainty. And that's what I hope I'm doing with my clients is, the first thing is let them see this is an opportunity to reinvent themselves and all the fun that comes with it. And then the other part, know that I believe in them. I'm in their corner, whether it's the work they need to do on their mindset, whether it's strategies or things that would help them grow their business. I believe in them even if they don't believe in themselves yet.
So why is it? What is it about humans that we all believe we need a mechanic, we need a dentist, we need a lawyer, we need an accountant? I could pull my own tooth, but I'm smart enough to know I need a dentist. But why is it when it comes to the brain and understanding and savvy and strategy that we don't think we need that? Why is it that an Olympian knows that they need a coach? Even if they're the fastest runner in the world, they know they need a coach to perfect their art form and their skill set. But why is it that we as humans resist believing that we need help when it comes to business?
And that's a great question. I mean, the first part, I think the stigma that goes around asking for help. It's almost like the stigma is like, oh, you're not good enough. If you don't actually know how to do it yourself, you're not good enough. So there's the stigma that we've been conditioned to believe in as you're growing up is, you need to, even if you don't know it all, you need to pretend that you know it all. That's kind of what's been rewarded and recognized. So that part. The other part too is, I think there is lack of understanding of how difficult the journey is. There is lack of self-awareness. Most of the people sadly reach out to get help, whether it's a coach or even a therapist or any type of help, is when they hit rock bottom, when the damage is too big. Because we've never been educated even to know that there is help out there. And thank goodness they're doing better jobs in terms of educating people about mental health and the need of having, support there. But the coaching piece has been a privilege and a perk only for the privileged people, like executives and top athletes and actors and people who are rich and have money. It's never been, there was no easy access to it. It's never been, there was no knowledge about it and the value that it actually do. Even myself, I learned about it by accident. And then through my journey of really ups and downs and thinking, okay, you know what? Whatever I'm doing is not enough. I need to do something different. And then when I came across it, I was like, oh my God, like what a relief. I was putting so much pressure on myself that I need to figure it out all on my own. And then the fact that someone can remind you of your potential, like how far you could go if you believe in yourself fully, that part is like so precious. Investing in yourself is so precious, but we've never knew about it. It was never an option for us. There was some biases against it as well. And the other part is, I don't think people budget for it too. But then there's the money piece is I don't have money to hire a coach. And believe me, again, it's not about the money. When you're ready, the money, you'll figure out a way to actually find the money. But it just, there is a need for more education, more self-awareness, and really challenging our biases towards coaching or asking for help.
We have the money for what we prioritize. That and that's a bit of a blanket statement, but I think I heard where you were going there, and I think it's quite reasonable a statement to make. So tell me something though. Given your background and your life experience and your career experience, etc., I still have the question for you, and that is, what do you know and how are you going to help somebody in their business when it comes to when their profession or their business is in an area of expertise that you've got no familiarity with? How is it that you can still help a business owner when, unlike your husband, that person might be an engineer, but you're not. That person might be in manufacturing, but you're not. That person might be in agriculture, but you're not. How can they still find value in working with a coach such as yourself? And how does that relationship work?
To me, I coach the human being behind any title. So it doesn't matter if whatever industry that you're working with or your title, you're a human being at the end. And you're actually, so there's two parts of the work I do. There's the coaching, which is a lot of work on the mindset, limiting beliefs, and empowerment, and really realizing your potential and getting clarity on who you are authentically, what value, strengths you have. And then there is the strategy, which is more business strategies, which basically has to do with my education or my 20 plus years of business experience. And I've worked in different areas. But to be honest, I always believe it's 80-20. Like it's 80% our mindset, our how we see ourselves, who are we being, how, what exactly motivates us, what passions that we have, what strengths that we have, why we're doing what we're doing. That part, coaching is very powerful because coaching gets you to go deeper, do self-discovery. So I see myself more as a facilitator. I facilitate that self-discovery journey to figure out who they are, what is important to them, and get clarity and on the direction that is right for them. So whatever they're going to do after, it's built on that solid foundation and it's more fulfilling. The strategy piece, I leverage all the learning I've had, whether from my MBA, CSC, coaching, work in sales and marketing, finance and leadership to really help them with strategies. But when we reach that point, believe it or not, because the coaching is so powerful, it's easier for them to find solutions because they're able to connect with themselves on a deeper level and they get to tap into their creativity, which would allow them to find answers to a lot of even business solutions. So I become more of a mentor or even advisor if there is a need to. So coaching, which sadly it's not as tapped into as it should be, and that's one of the things that I feel I'm on a mission to, is to democratize coaching and allow it to be accessible to everyone, regardless. So people can really feel more empowered and feel that they have a lot of potential, that they could really tap into it and kind of just really leverage all the strengths they have to live the life that they aspire to have and create the life that they aspire to create.
I'm again, you're painting a picture and I'm following you along, and different images are popping into my head as I'm listening to you. And I think about people like either Tiger Woods or Wayne Gretzky, or coaches like Lou Holtz, or coaches, you name any of the coaches out there, again, and athletes like Usain Bolt, for example. None of the coaches were ever the fastest athlete. None of the coaches had the highest precision in the skill set. What I'm hearing is that the technician and the implementer and the vehicle is the client, and their business is the vehicle. But the coach's job is to help audit and understand and question and refine and strategize and help the actual athlete, and in this case it's a business athlete, but help the athlete understand their own body, understand their own mindset, understand their own vehicle that they're working with. So as a facilitator, you can have the universal laws that still apply to business. You can have the universal laws that still apply to the human brain, to the mindset, to the psyche, to emotion, and all these things. Am I getting close with that?
Yeah, you are. And to be honest, I consider myself even in the business of reminding people of who they are and, what they have, because a lot of people forget, like, their bios and all the things they have. And I'll have to tell you, I watched recently Ted Lasso. I don't know if you watched the show.
Oh, I love Ted Lasso.
So I think it's a good reminder, really. I know it's a show and it's funny and all of this, but it's a good reminder that you don't really need to know, the game to be able to coach people to master that game. All what you need to know is how human beings work, really. You need to be able to fully believe in them, even when they doubt themselves. You need to give them a lot of compassion and love and hold the space for them and believe in their wisdom. Like, they have the wisdom within that we all forget about it. So that it's almost like you're getting like a boost of empowerment by having a coach supporting you. It's like you're having your ideal boss that you've ever always dreamt of, the type that is promoting you constantly, giving you all of this support and love. It's a combination of like the love of a parent with the guidance of a mentor with an ideal type of manager that we each dream of, and I'm talking about a good coach though, because there's so many people out there, they call themselves a coach, but they're not. It's just someone in your corner, someone believes in you all the time and willing to be honest with you when no one else is willing to be honest with you, especially when you're like a high executive. The number of honest people around you is shrinking as you're moving up on that corporate ladder. And to be able to have someone who's honest enough to tell you the truth or really help you challenge your blind spots and kind of just give you like the nudge to go beyond your comfort zone when fear is holding you back. And I got a chance as a coach, and you are as well, I'm sure you've seen, we get to see under the hood. And it doesn't matter your title and how much money you have. We are all struggling with the same issues. Whether it's confidence, whether it's feeling imposter, whether it's fear of like the need to please, or you want to impress people. We all have the same. Honestly, I've worked with executive, I've worked with emerging manager, I work with new entrepreneurs. We all share the same type of fears. And when we're functioning from that mindset, which is natural and normal, when you're functioning from fear and anxiety, it's hard to remember who you are and what you're capable of. So to have someone in your corner reminding you of who you are and what you're capable of and giving you that nudge with love and, being honest with you, then the sky is the limit. Like, whatever you want to create, it's up to you to create.
It's phenomenal to sit and think about it, to try and quantify the intangible. And
it's beautifully said.
It is a tall order for many, because again, we have to put currency value on paying for coaching, to pay for something that is very hard to measure. And I'm not buying a product that I can see that is already ready made. I'm not buying a car. I'm not buying a chocolate bar that is already ready made. It's hard to me to imagine I have to pay into somebody who's going to breathe belief into me that I can become and generate and create the product that I want to have as the outcome. It is really a mental game. And I love that, because it's also having an accountability partner, someone who, as you said, is not going to tell you what you want to hear, which is easy to come by, especially the higher you go up the ladder. I know we've got our team and our colleagues and our experts who are working in our agency, and they are reminded on the daily basis. Don't tell me what I think I want to hear. I'm paying you to be the expert. I'm paying you to hold us accountable. And that is so vital. And it's so rare to have people who genuinely want you to win. And the way in which they're going to show you that they want you to win is by not telling you what you want to hear. That is truly invaluable to have that on your team. That mother figure or that loving figure, the accountability partner, but also when you've decided to quit, or that enough is good enough, to push one step farther. It's such an incredible journey that we call life. And really, I've enjoyed this conversation, because everything that I'm hearing about from your very, very first journey, that is certainly relatable to many Canadians, many here in Canada, in their journey to come to Canada, but also really for the journey from working so hard and tirelessly to fulfill somebody else's dream, and taking that big step into working toward belief in yourself that you're worth fulfilling your own dream, and attracting other people along the way to come with you and to fulfill that dream. It is an amazing game that all takes place up here, or certainly you talk about the 80-20, takes place upstairs in our own mindset. It is the endless pursuit of progress, and perhaps never achieving perfection. But it's an incredible journey. I have got to tell you, I have absolutely enjoyed this conversation with you, and I would love to pick it up and continue on. I have a question for you, and that is, if you had one opportunity to change the world, what would you do?
I will make coaching accessible for everyone. And for all the reasons that you've mentioned, because I know how powerful it can be. And I know that when people have enough support, the sky is the limit. And believing in themselves and aiming higher and claiming their greatness, it becomes easy. So that's what I will do. And then from there, I'll leave it up to each one to define their own success and pursue the life or career or business or relationship they feel they are worth it.
Ghinwa Merei.
You got it again. Yay, Arthur.
Got it again. Coach, master of belief and mastering our own mindset and our inner belief in ourselves, founder of Envisionary Innovative Consulting. I want to thank you for investing your time with me, sharing with me, and I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'd look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you, Arv. It was such a pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation and hope to talk again. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thinc Underground is a Siva Creative Incorporated production, written and hosted by Arif Khan, produced by Brett Glover, with production assistance by Samantha Bowman, Cody Fitzgerald, William Gibson. Music courtesy 1M1 Music, directed by Arif Khan. Executive producers Mallory Steele and Arif Khan. Created by Mallory Steele.